Hello everybody, Glitch Reaper here. I'm here for a very new series I'm doing, and as you can see, I've been trying to work out some details of a few things, and I'm looking fairly custom with my custom shield and my custom weapon. You've probably seen this particular weapon before a few times, but not many, and you're probably wondering how you get it. Well, the thing is, I'm going to be explaining a lot of things in this series. Sometimes I'll probably be repeating at the beginning how you do stuff. But at the same time, I'll also be showing particular combinations of things in terms of making custom equipment. And that's where this beautiful thing over here comes in. This is Geo Knocker, my custom Lycanites. Well, it counts as an axe, but it's more of a battle hammer. So, uh, or warhammer. So, yeah. And it's pretty cool. And I'd like to show off how this system actually works. I'd had a few requests for this. Lycanite himself showed it off, but at the same time, there's still a bit of confusion over how Lycanite's new custom equipment system works. And it will be expanded on over time. It won't just be weapon tools. It will also have its own armor and shields and more, even like bows and crossbows, etc. So it's going to be a very expansive system. And it's something that's within Lycanite's mobs currently, although at some point it might be where he might have to do add-on mods rather than all this one big one, but I prefer the all-in-one big one myself. So we'll see where that goes. And so now I'm going to be showing how this whole system works. Now, the thing is, you need some of these equipment forges, but you only technically need the best one. And the thing is that I'm going to be kind of showing how this whole thing works off over time. But first off, you're probably wondering, how do you get yourself the least version of an equipment forge? Well, to get a lesser equipment forge, you just need to have a crafting table and a wooden axe. But if you're going to go for level 2, then you have a lesser equipment forge and a block of iron to upgrade it. Now, going to the ultimate version, the master equipment forge, you need to have a block of diamond in the greater equipment forge. The reason why I'm saying that you only really need one is because the master equipment forge can handle all the parts, and it will not downgrade any of them. So it can handle level 1, level 2, and level 3. And that's rather important because you can't use a higher level component than your forge can handle without it downgrading to that level. I think that feature has been backported from 1.14, so I'm also discussing the current state of things. Yeah, Lycanites is in 1.14, so reminder. The thing is that you can use any kind of part at any level in the Master Forge, so you really just need this one. It is a bit more expensive. As I said, it needs promotions through an iron block and a diamond block to get it. But in the end, if you're doing something and you really need the more awesome stuff, you will definitely go for that. Now, as I was also discussing, you also have, well, parts. And this is where I get to show off a bit more of how this whole thing works. Whenever you're going around in the world with Lycanite's mobs, you'll be finding all sorts of circumstances where the mobs themselves show up, so you'll be fighting all sorts of creatures. Well, nowadays, creatures can drop these parts, and it's an uncommon or rare drop, but you'll probably fight enough over time where that won't be an issue. Now, as a bit of a backup plan, you can also create certain wooden parts, and also certain iron parts. So these have no other features other than they can be used as a part and to give you the proper slots. They won't give you special abilities. Every part that comes from a creature can give you special abilities in your crafted piece of equipment, which will be your weapon tool. Now the thing about it is each of these has a level, which is why I've got them here in triplicate. And just showing off a few points. One of which is, as the level goes up, you tend to get more things that part can do. Like, for example, a level 1 part usually cannot summon anything or have a secondary special ability that is like a ranged attack. So for an Argus Tail, it will give you a head slot, it inflicts instability effect on your target, and it counts as a base, so you'll need one to start a piece of equipment with. If your trying to go for an Argus tail, but there are other base parts. But as you go up in level, you'll notice a few things. Like it'll relist that special effect, meaning it's inflicting more of it. And it'll also tell you right now that you're also able to summon an Argus. It's at a base chance of only 5%, but hey, any help counts in a fight. And you'll notice the level 3 version is also increasing the duration of the effect and still has the ability to summon. Well, similarly, we have Cinder Blades. And this is a pretty good illustration of kind of all the above. Because this particular blade deals some decent damage, but it also sets targets on fire. And as it goes up in level, you'll notice that that duration increases. Also, it has the ability to harvest as a sword, and it affects only a block at a time. This means anything that you normally harvest with a sword faster, even though normally swords take extra durability damage, you'd be able to do that with this. But, interesting point, all custom equipment from Lycanites mobs has unlimited durability. That was decided on in more than one way, partially because it's just the way it worked out in coding, and partially because there's actually a lot stronger weapons out there from some mods that still have durability. So it's kind of a balancing point. Now, as you go up in level with Cinderblade, you'll also notice that you suddenly, at level 2, get the ability to use projectiles in the form of Ember Shots whenever you use the Use button. So anytime you have a secondary use like that, you do have to use the Use button rather than attack, so special point. Also, you'll notice that at level 3, you get the ability to summon cinders on occasion whenever you're striking your targets. So this illustrates how these parts work. Now, the first combo I'm going to show off is going to be this one. So it won't have any of those particular parts, but it will have some interesting ones combined. This is one that, as I said, you've seen before. This is my Geo Knocker combination. And each one I've kind of been trying to assign a special name. Partially to remember how I make it, and partially because of the thematics of how it all works together. But there will be some combinations I'm just kind of pondering what to call them. Now, it uses several components, and it's usually best to think of these in terms of level 3. Partially because in the future, in addition to parts being demoted through going through a lesser forge, you can have them promoted by combining them in an anvil. That feature is not ready yet as of the time I'm doing this, but it will be in the future, where you take 2 of the previous level and put them in an anvil to make them a higher level. So kind of like how you do with enchanted books and enchanted equipment, where you're promoting its level through an anvil. So that's a future feature. But again, a lot of this is work in progress. As you can see, there's a few things that don't work as expected. And yeah, the models are so intense, sometimes methods of trying to contain them don't work as you'd expect, but that actually makes it look cooler to me. It gives it more that otherworldly feel. But, yeah. Now, you may also notice, before I go into this specific combination and what it can really do for you, that I have been experimenting with trying to get things to display my custom equipment. And here's the results. If you use a drying rack or the item rack from Tinker's Construct, it gives you missing texture. If you use a case from Bibliocraft, it kind of merges with the case in a weird way. Will not work with a tool rack at all. The shelves will show it, and it kind of embeds itself in that shelf layer, so if I put it here, it'd be partially down there. But you can see the whole bit of Geo Knocker right there. And you can also see in a regular item frame, it kind of... you can rotate it around as usual, but it just doesn't quite always line up. But you can still see the custom name, so that works. The display stands from Evilcraft seem to do a pretty good job, actually. Like, the way it has that one fit is kind of like how I was wanting to do with the sword pedestal from Bibliocraft. And the one on the side has it pretty well held up. It almost looks like a triumphant torch. Again, doesn't work on sword pedestals, and you can see the results with an oak table. I've also tried displaying it with the pedestals from Abyssalcraft. So you can see how that even lets it rotate around. That's just the cobble version, so it doesn't contrast as much. And over here we have Arcane Pedestal and Eldritch Pedestal from Thaumcraft, which additionally, like the ones from Abyssalcraft, allow it to kind of rotate around. I could have sworn I destroyed all the snow up here, but I'm pretty far up right now. I'm actually at a world I used before for a mob battle in the sky, and it might be a little frosty. But now it's time to go for the main event and show how to assemble Geoknocker and what it can do. So basically, you'd start off by first having to hunt down the various components. And this is where I'm going to go by all of them. An int arm is usually obtained from ints. They happen whenever you chop down a tree sometimes. And they will leave these int arms behind. These are base parts, so if you're trying to craft any piece of Lycanites equipment, you will need a base part first. You will always need to start with them, so this is very important. Now, ints will happen from trees, so you'll actually probably get these fairly frequently whenever you're doing a little woodworking. Now, this particular part has a life leech ability, which means you will gain an ability to absorb health from your targets when you hit them. Now, the really important thing about this one, other than just the special effect, is the fact it not only adds a head component like all base parts do, but it also adds a pommel. Not all pommel, darn lips, not all base parts add pommel slots. This is really important, because pommels will give you some sort of extra ability or abilities on your equipment, and every component you put together adds up to its final statistics, like its attack speed and attack power, and other things like that. So having just that extra part does help, and just adds to the whole with a special ability usually. So this is one of the reasons why I'm going with it, but also because I did this originally kind of seeing if I could rebuild Thor's hammer in Minecraft using Lycanites mobs. You can see that it kind of looks like Gru's arm whenever he helped make not Mjolnir, but whenever he helped make Stormbreaker. So this is kind of like if you fuse Stormbreaker with Mjolnir, what you'd get. And so whenever the new Gru used his arm as part of it, that's kind of what I was going for. But you'll also need a few other parts, obviously. And you can see kind of the grip here, where I've got everything attached, is this Ventoraptor skull. Now, if you're going for Ventoraptors, you're going to have to hunt them on the plains. They will show up periodically. So look for a plains biome if you're trying to create this piece of equipment. Now, it adds the weakness effect to the target, so they'll hit you less after you hit them really hard. Now, the interesting thing about this is it's currently one of only 2 equipment parts that add axe slots. So it's one of only 2 head parts that add axe slots. That's very important because there's not really many right now, but there will be more in the future in all likelihood. Because Lycanite does want to add more that add axe slots. That way you won't just be hunting for Ventoraptors and using that one iron part that adds slots. But the thing to know is anytime you have a head part that adds axe slots, it will always add 2. So if you're trying to make a completed axe that has all the parts you can, you will want to make sure that you have 2 of them, or maybe 2 different parts. Like one of my designs doesn't use 2 of the same. This one does for more than one reason. Partially just because of how cool it looks. Now, the next thing you'll need is Geoknocker fists. Now, Geoknocks are found whenever you mine, especially ores like iron and gold, which are, ones that just drop themselves, but occasionally some other ores. So you'll be getting these pretty often whenever you're mining. Now, the thing about it is they count as axe slots, or axe parts, as I was going to try to say. They add the weight effect to your target, which means that your target's going to have a hard time getting up, including trying to swim. So it can be very debilitating in certain ways and very annoying. But also, rather importantly, it counts as a pickaxe with an area of effect, and I'm going to show that off pretty heavily. So this will be a heavy mining tool. And you may also note that it has an additional ability that's not exactly listed so much as an effect, but you may note that it's listed as knockback. These 2 Geoknocker fists have very heavy knockback, so if you use 2 of them, that does stack up. So Geoknocker, one of the reasons why I named it that is because it will knock things and really far back, and it was made partially from Geo Knocker, so play on the name. But anyhow, you'll be needing 2 of these, so you'll probably be mining a lot. You may also get a Geoknocker spear along the way or 2, but you'll be wanting 2 Geoknocker fists for this particular combo. And the last part is the pommel, which is a Djinn cloud. Now, Djinn are elementals that are found very high up. They're usually in the upper atmosphere, and they can sometimes be found on mountaintops that are tall enough. So you may find them just when you're very high up in the world. You might also fly past some on occasion. Now, its effect is primarily to add levitation, although the weight effect kind of interacts with that weird, which I'm going to show off later. And it also summons Jinn on occasion. It also looks really cool as a pommel with this nifty wraparound effect. So showing how to actually do this and actually build it. And I already have one already made, obviously. You add in your base part first, which in this case is the int arm. Now, at this time, you can add both any head slot, because as long as you have any base part, you'll always get a head slot. And note how the slots kind of illuminate and change colors whenever you put in a new part that actually adds the new slots. So put in the base part, it adds all the other slots that it can. Now, at this time, you can simultaneously add your pommel, and you can add your axe parts, in this case the Geoknocker fist. You don't have to have a pommel to complete something that gives you the option. And you don't actually have to have both axe parts to complete it. But for best results, in my experience, it's best to go with everything you can at the same time. So first add your int arm, then you can add your Ventoraptor skull and your Jinn cloud, and you can add your 2 Geoknocker fists. And now you have your completed version of Geoknocker. Note the two are basically identical now. So, yeah. Well, wrong perspective. But, yeah. I just added the name. So, you can do that in an anvil. They are completely compatible with anvil naming at this time. He does want to add a feature where you can actually custom name them while you're in the equipment forge, but that'll be later. Now, I'll be showing off a few things about this. Partially is just how much this thing wallops something over an edge. Bye! Have a nice fall! Yeah, that you can really fling things off edges. I'd say into lava pools is probably going to be better than off a cliff, because note how he kind of floated slowly down for a little while there? Yeah, that's what happens when you have levitation and weight on the same item. But it is also really fun to see. And I just sent that guy flying. Like, the knockback is hilarious. So let's just watch him just fly again. Whee! He's gone. And I got some knowledge of behemoths because of Lycanites mobs. Now I'm going to show off how well this thing adds to, well, smashing stuff. So for that, I will need to go into survival. And there's a couple of different features to note about how it breaks blocks. Now, this thing will affect an area, and that's because of the Geoknocker fists. So, if I just smash this set of iron, you'll note that it only broke the iron, and I had hidden some diamond blocks inside it, actually. Well, it's unharmed because he's got automatic vein mining whenever this function is used, so it'll only affect the exact same type of block as the one you first targeted. Additionally, you can hold sneak and only break one block at a time to negate the effect, so that you don't have to smash everything. So, note that this is just a really cool, good way to mine. Now, whenever you use creature parts rather than the crafted parts, you get a better mining level as well. So, you can also do things like smashing even obsidian. Now, they can't be enchanted, so it's not going any faster, but you gotta admit, that was fast even compared with a fully enchanted diamond pickaxe. So, that is insane functionality, and purely for a bit of hunting. So, you had to go around, you had to go to certain biomes, yeah. You had to do a little mining, a little tree chopping, and go a little high in the sky, but in the end, you'd get something as awesome as Geo Knocker, which is basically my replacement Thor hammer, which will probably be going around indefinitely. Yeah, and I think in the future, after we maybe have a slight vote in the comments over which display was better, that I may not really be doing too much of that in terms of showing other kinds of testing for a while, but you can see what this is capable of. And might I add, that guy wasn't just floating and smacked, and he was also weighted and weakened. He would have a harder time fighting back, period. So he got crushed and debilitated. And, well, he was flung off an edge. So, yeah, that's showing the power of Geo Knocker. Now, whenever you're in actual melee with it, remember that this particular combination has only a .8 attack speed, but it has 13 attack power. So a good critical hit with this will be devastating, and the knockback will be your friend because it will reset your distance. But the attack speed means if you're overcrowded, then even the fact that it will probably be dealing some sweep damage means you're probably still not going to be able to deal with a full crowd situation because they may be a little overwhelming because of its slow attack speed. So this isn't exactly the best as a quick use combat weapon. I will be showing off other combos that have that kind of property though. So stay tuned for all sorts of different combinations with Lycanites mobs and maybe other customization type mods as well that give you all sorts of nifty options for your gear. For now, this has been Glitch Reaper. I'll be logging off. Hope to hear from y'all later, and bye for now, everybody.